Good morning, friends, wherever you are, and welcome to today's Cichlids and Coffee live stream. And yes, I was thinking about not doing one this weekend. I was thinking about skipping this weekend, but as it turns out, here I am. And a big thank you to all of you who have jumped on. I see some fish capades, and Miguel and Bill D and Proverbs 21:19. Uncle Smiley's Aquariums. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Sal Pal, Mitty Mac, Big Steve's, Paul. Hey, Paul, good to see you there, buddy. Kendall G in the house. Hey, Kendall. Tracy Ballard, Michael Price. Hey, Joe, good to see you, Joe. And very, very cool. All right, well, welcome everybody. And I just thought I had to get out there and talk a little bit about that recent video on PetSmart, and it's gotten a lot of traction. It's gotten a fair amount of views, and I have a couple big takeaways from it that I think you'll like. So stay tuned for those. One of them is going to change how I do certain things. So yeah, definitely stay on for that. As is usually the case, a couple of very quick. Boy, that's some good coffee. I hope you're having a good cup of coffee wherever you are, or whatever your favorite beverage is. A couple of very quick shout outs, like I like to do. Quick shout out to my friends over at the co-op, and they help me out a lot here, and so a big shout out to Corey and Zenzo and Candy and all the folks there at the co-op. Truly a friend of the channel. For those of you who would like to help the channel a bit, consider using my Amazon link for your Christmas shopping. Of course, you're probably done with your Christmas shopping, but if you access Amazon using this link, anything you buy on Amazon, whether it's from my store or anywhere on Amazon, gives a small credit to the channel and doesn't charge you anything extra for doing it. So it's a great way to kind of help the channel without costing you anything. Also, a big shout out. Let me move this over here. Oh, keep moving the camera. Hold on. I want to give a big shout out to those of you who support the channel on a monthly basis with what is called Patreon. Patreon's a interesting program that is not directly affiliated with YouTube, so YouTube doesn't take a big bite out of it like it does with other things. So if you are interested in supporting the channel, you can you might want to consider becoming a Patreon. It starts for as little as $3 a month. And these are some of the members that are currently, I think this is accurate. These are some of the members that are currently helping me out on a monthly basis. Really helps out a lot to get me to some of the aquarium shows and pick up products like that FX6 recently that I did some work on and things like that. It's funded mostly by those of you who help and support the channel with your efforts through Patreon. There's details under the video on Patreon. A couple more camera adjustments here, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. What else do I have to tell you? This is where I pay bills. Big shout out to my friend Josh over at Cunningham Tropicals, another person who helps the channel out. And let me just get this moved over. There we go. For those of you not familiar with Cunningham Tropicals, he used to be Cunningham Cichlids, was probably best known for selling African cichlids originally, but then expanded out to all types of fish, from cories to plecos to discus. And so use ben.o.15 for 15% off on fish and ben.o.10 for 10% off on dry goods. I've been using his flakes and his cichlid food, and my fish like it. All right, let's see here. Is that it? Is that everybody? I think so. I think we're good to start. So there you go. It's officially underway. Any questions that you might have, any super chats that appear on the chat, I will get to them. I will give you a shout out and an acknowledgement. But sometimes when I'm in the middle of talking, I don't look at the chat because it can be very distracting. But let's take a look at it now. Ed Goodman 01. Very, very cool. Glad to see you here. And it looks like Whip is in the house. Good to see you here, buddy. So I have, like I tend to do, I have a couple notes here that I want to go over with you. And first of all, I want to thank everybody who watched that PetSmart video. It got a lot of traction, a lot of views, a lot of comments, and that's always a good thing for a YouTuber. And, thanks to those of you who watched it and commented, both positive and negative. All the comments, if the comments are sincere, that's cool. That's cool. And you're trying to help, or you're trying to point something out. People that just troll, and are just saying stuff that's mean-spirited or stuff, they usually just get blocked from the channel. I don't engage anymore like I used to. But I did get a lot of folks that liked, and some that didn't like, and they all had constructive and valuable comments about the video. And there's a few of them that jumped out, and I just want to comment on them with you first. And before I get into the two big takeaways from this whole experience, one of the comments that jumped out was, several of them like this, actually. Several of them were, well, you should know better. Everybody knows. You should know better. Everybody knows that big box stores don't quarantine. Maybe I should have known. But I honestly, from having spoken with some of the folks in charge of the departments of some of these big box stores, I was obviously under the false impression that they had started at least putting fish under observation for a few weeks, either by blocking off a tank and saying these fish are not for sale, or by having a section in the back of the store where they could observe these fish. Now, someone commented, look, with the size of the shipments that these places receive, how in the world could you expect them to quarantine? Now, this to me, and maybe this is an extreme example, but to me it would be like, well, look, I'm sorry your family were severely hurt, but we sell so many cars here. We really don't have the time to check the brakes on the steering on all the vehicles. So too bad. And you certainly can't expect us to check the brakes on all the cars because we sell so many cars here. No, here's my viewpoint on that. If you choose to sell fish, you need to incorporate in your protocols some observation. Ideally, in an ideal world, observation with medication, using that trio that is discussed by Corey. Right? You're hitting them for ick, you're hitting them for bacterial infections, for parasites, using a combination of, Fritz or General Cure, whatever that might be, or ICX, and at least keep an eye on them before you release them on the public. That's my opinion. And if you can't do that, and this is going to seem kind of hard, I'm sorry. And for those of you on here who might be trolling from PetSmart, this is just my opinion, okay, for what it's worth. If you can't do that, don't sell fish. Keep selling products. Keep selling your products. You have a role in the industry. You sell food, you sell dry goods, you sell medications, filtering products, filters, lights. That's all cool. That's all cool. Keep doing that. And if it's 7 o'clock at night and everything's closed and I need some ICX, I could probably go over to the PetSmart and find it. And so there's a place for these big box stores in our hobby. But if they can't do it with proper protocols, I say don't do it. And I'll tell you why I'm so adamant about that. If you watch my channel, one of my big goals, one of my purposes for even being on YouTube is helping to expand the hobby by helping, in particular, new fish keepers to come in and not suffer the setbacks that knock people out of the hobby and result in that aquarium that's set up on Craigslist for $10 or just come pick it up. I don't want it anymore. So when you don't follow proper protocol, especially in a setting where you're working with the first-time fish keeper, you're going to serve up losses and setbacks that are going to result in people just abandoning the hobby, not sticking with it because, well, I guess I don't got what it takes. It's too hard for me, or it's a child who got their first aquarium and it's just, it just gets run over by disease and it's one loss after another. And it something that started off with the best of intentions, something very happy, turns into something actually kind of sad. So my feeling is that it hurts the hobby more than it helps to not be as responsible as you can. And you can't use the word too big to do it. You just can't do that. Predatory fins, Corey, all these guys out get massive shipments of fish and they quarantine and observe, and in some cases medicate. You allocate the square footage, and if you don't have the allocation, or you rather have that square footage for dog kibble or whatever and dog toys, that's okay. Don't sell fish. Just don't sell fish. Now, I've gotten good fish. Hey, full disclosure, I've gotten some great fish over the years from both PetSmart and in particular Petco. And when they went to their horizontal racks, when they went to the vertical racks where they started stacking tanks, so each section had its own sump system. So I wasn't just commonly sharing water throughout all the tanks with one massive sump system. And I think even back then they still had the feeder fish on a separate system. But when they went to that system, I thought, okay, good, they're coming along. They're coming along. They're starting to. So if there's some sick fish in one section, then they can shut that section down and keep selling fish from the other sections. Now, that's a step in the right direction, but it's not a step in the right direction if you haven't educated the employees in cross-contamination, where they'll take water from various vertical racks and throw them all into the same bag, or use the same net to go back and forth between sections. So educating the staff, and I think that's what it really comes down to. It just comes down to having a store manager that is savvy. And I know that that's hard because you've got to get a place like that, you've got to get a store manager that knows fish, birds, dogs, cats, reptiles, right? What else they sell? Tarantulas, right? Spiders. They have to have a very broad education to manage a store like that. So I get it. Probably not an easy role to fill, but really educating on cross contamination, continuing the vertical racks, but making sure your each rack has its own set of nets. Each rack has its hoses for, or maybe they have auto water change. I don't know, but now I will say this: my cross contamination protocols in my fish room saved my butt, because if I hadn't been using specific hoses and practically boiling nets and hoses with what I was using on my quarantine tank, I would have cross contaminated the tanks in this room, and it would have been a complete dumpster fire. So I can't speak highly enough for being conscious of cross contamination, and really just being have it on your radar, right? And if you've been going for a very long time, you haven't added any new fish, your tanks are all stable, the fish have been healthy for a long time, it's easy to get lazy on that stuff. But if you're bringing new fish in and you have quarantine tanks, I suggest you have hoses and nets that are dedicated to the quarantine tanks, because it'll save your butt if you're bringing in new fish. Certainly did mine. So you should know better. A corporation that large can't be expected to quarantine. Those are two of the comments. Someone made a comment about, what in the world are you doing buying fish in a PetSmart? I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I've had some good experiences with fish from there before. That's more on me. Now, let me be real clear about this. I am not banging the drum for being a victim of PetSmart. I'll tell you what if I'm the victim of anything, it's the victim of not listening to my gut. As I mentioned in the original video, when I asked him about quarantine, and his response was, "Oh yeah, of course, we float the bags before we add them to the tank." Right when I heard that, in a perfect world, I would have said, "Hey, you know what? Thanks, I've changed my mind," and just leave. But he already had them bagged out. He'd put a lot of effort in getting some good ones in there, and I just went ahead and gave it a wink, and that wink was extremely expensive. So it's on me. It's on me. I've got my responsibility. And, when you point a finger, like I always say, 3 fingers point back at you. So the takeaway, I've got two takeaways on this. And first of all, some good news. Let me give you some good news. The fish in the quarantine tank that are left, they've turned the corner. They're fine. I can see them from here. They're swimming. They're healthy. They look clean. Fins are good. They're eating. I've stopped medicating. I've added activated carbon to remove residual medication from the aquarium, and now we're on regular water change. I'll do a few, maybe one or two extra water changes, and let them sit in there for about five weeks, and just keep watching them. Make sure anything creeps back in. The fish that are in there, 3 cories, a couple resbors, a couple neons. I'll tell you one thing: those fish are tough to have survived what killed off so many other fish. So some good news on that, and again, I think what saved my butt was the I didn't cross contaminate, which would have been very easy to do with that very, very highly contagious disease. So here are a couple of takeaways, and you tell me what you think about this, and maybe it'll help you. It's certainly going to help me. First one is that with my quarantine tank protocol, it doesn't happen that often, but it will happen where I have fish in quarantine and they're in the middle of that 30-day period and I buy more fish or more fish are delivered. So what I would do is add them to the aquarium, the quarantine aquarium, and then extend quarantine for the fish that were already in it, extend it so that the fish that were in day 15 of quarantine, I add new fish. Well, those fish are all going to be in there for 45 days at least. So I would just simply extend the quarantine period. So what I learned, what my takeaway, and maybe this is something you were already doing and I'm the village idiot, but what I'm going to do is if I don't have a free tank for quarantine, I'm not going to bring in new fish. I'm not going to overlap quarantine periods. Takeaway number one. And takeaway number two, and this was a big one. And I'll get to your comments, by the way. I know some of you are chomping at the bit there. Takeaway number two, and a lot of you already knew this, some of you commented under my video, is that a lot of diseases can appear initially like something they're not. And then you treat them, and your treatment actually aggravates the situation. Let me show you what I mean. By the way, I got so carried away here that I didn't look to see if my AV is okay. How's the AV? Audio visuals. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Can you imagine after all that you never even heard a word I said? Whip, how's the AV there, buddy? I know you're laughing about something. I see the LMAO. All right, so AV is great. Thank you, Whip. So for those of you that didn't see the original video, let's see here. Maybe Whip can share that link, but the whole video that I'm sort of ranting about is this one right here. Just for those of you that didn't get a chance to watch it. But the second big takeaway is this. This is an example of what ick looks like. I think we're all familiar with this, right? Like someone sprinkled a little bit of salt on your fish. Each granule is pretty well defined. It's clear, you know, it looks like little salt granules. Here's another example of ick. And again, this one almost is a little borderline for me, but I want you to notice something about both of these. First of all, the individual granules, and also look at the eyes of the fish. Now I want you to look at the eyes let me bring this one up for you. Look at the eyes of this guy. This is from Aquarium Science, a good little resource on the internet. First of all, there's a little. It's not quite as clean. Each granule doesn't have that sort of granular clean look, like a grain of sand or salt, and it's on the eyes. So it's very common to mistake this disease with ick. With this disease, you lower the temperature in your aquarium. So in my case, thinking from the initial presentation of the disease that I had ick, I raised the temperature in the aquarium. And what that did is it actually accelerated the disease, actually made it worse and gave it more of an ideal condition to propagate, and that's where it jumped over onto and killed the clown loaches. At first, I thought the clowns were reacting to an increase in temperature, which made no sense because I've raised temperature on clowns before and they did fine. What happened was that misdiagnosing initially, raising the temp, and then wasting time hitting it with Icex when I should have been hitting it with Maricin 2 or Maricin 2, or maybe Metro or a more powerful antibiotic. So all I did was allow the disease to become a little bit stronger, and by doing so, kill off clown loaches and plecos, which were looking really good and were very close to ending their quarantine period before I made this quarantine overlap blunder. So my two takeaways, and I know this before from having years ago had a battle with with other diseases that looked initially like fungus. They looked a little bit like velvet. They turned out to be something else. I was using the wrong kind of medication, the wrong kind of antibiotic, gram negative, gram versus gram positive. I mean, there's Colomaris was the one where I initially misdiagnosed, and because it initially just looked a little bit like a minor fungal infection, and while treating it for that, it just got progressively worse and worse, and ended up with a very serious Colomaris. And again, that was a quarantine mistake, or a rushing of a quarantine that resulted in that Colomaris. So, at any rate, the two takeaways: do not overlap quarantine. If you don't have a free quarantine tank, don't pick up more fish. A corollary to that, keep your cross-contamination protocols in rock solid, and certainly listen to your gut. Don't impulse buy. And finally, diseases can actually look very similar. Stop for a moment, take a second, jump on the internet and Google it, because if you Google ick and you go down the hole far enough, you'll run into Apistlis, however you pronounce it. You will run into that disease, and by examining the eyes and the look of it, you'll know. This is not a raise the temperature. This is lower the temperature, and hit it with some antibiotics, with some strong antibiotics. So let's just open this up to comments and see what you have to say. I'm going back to the beginning here. Wally's freshwater, worn in the house. A bubble off. Hello to you. I love these names. A bubble off. Oh boy. Larry O'Brien in the house. Merry Christmas to you, my friend. Clearwater, Florida. Been there several times. Fishcapades. Fishcapades is calling PetSmart DeathSmart. I bought 6 balloon mollies, and they're 6 weeks into quarantine. So far, so good, but I'm going to give it another 6 weeks. Hey, quarantine, man. You know, someone pointed out to me one time that quarantine comes from the word has 4, and I think during the plague, was that it? During the Black Plague, ships that would come into Sicily or was it Sicily or Florence, they had to stay off port for 4 months before they were allowed in. So you got the idea of quad, the quarantine. I mean, talk about a quarantine. 4 months sitting in your ship. These guys were probably going crazy, dying of scurvy out there. Let's see here. Michael says, the PetSmart I have been to are different, some good, some bad. Yeah, I agree. Depends on the managers. I 100% agree. I had one in California when I was there that went through a period where it was really, really good. And then I had a period where it was very, very bad. And in both cases, I think it was a change of manager. Sal Pal in St. Louis. Are you a Kansas City Chiefs fan? Probably, right? Let's see here. I'm cruising the cruise, cruising the chat. I'll go ahead and bring up the chat. You folks can see your wonderful comments. I'm glad you're here, Kendall. I'm glad you finally made it. Tracy Ballard in the house. Good morning to you. Brian Park. Jackie Moore. We had some great people here. Miguel Citron. 6 to 8 weeks of quarantine from big box purchases. Yeah, I think that's smart. I mean, you're who knows where they source them from. I mean, I think they're sourcing them from all over the world. So you can get stuff in that's something that your tanks are just not familiar with, have zero resistance to. In the genes, with my PetSmart, it depends on which clerk you get. Some are clueless, and some are very knowledgeable. Yeah. I concur. If you have a question, throw it at me now. All right, can somebody chime in and help Ed Goodman? Ed Goodman 01. Now, what's worked for me, Ed, is I'm assuming the tank is empty. Believe it or not, is it called barkeeper's helper, bar helper, barkeeper's helper? It doesn't. I think that's the one that doesn't it doesn't actually doesn't work as an abrasive. It's actually safe. I mean, the first attempt would be a little bit of vinegar, and water, and then carefully use a razor blade. Let the vinegar soak a little bit, then take a razor blade to it. That can help. Uh, Barkeeper's Helper, I think it's called. I think that can help. But there are ways of doing it, folks. If you want to chime in, he's got probably a mineral buildup on an aquarium he purchased, and yes, it can be a little frustrating. Angelo says I'm an old hippie. Uh, Whip's World. I don't think they have the space for that. I know back in the day when I would worked at Noah's Ark, the fish came in and were often sold that same day. There was no space beyond the back door. Yeah, and again, that's one of those. And I know I seem hard, but then you shouldn't sell fish. I mean, if you don't allocate the space, then you shouldn't sell fish. I mean, it should be part of the. And Kendall agrees. Well, peas and haps forever. I think probably some employees do, but they probably run into, peas and haps is saying it's all about the Benjamins, right? It's all about the money. I think you're right, but and I think that there probably are some good staff that come in and try to put in proper protocols, and they probably get shot down. How come you're not moving as many fish as the other stores? You're way below quota, blah, blah, blah. The pressure comes, and, you know, having worked a lot in sales, I know how sometimes numbers can sometimes get a hold, can be pushed so hard that you lose your way. And one of the reasons I was very successful in sales is the client's needs and an understanding of the client and working with the client. That was number one priority. And the money came. The money came as a byproduct of that, not because I was just shoving things down people's throats. But, I can understand how some manager might get really into that kind of, like, putting in proper protocols, using a floor space, and get slammed by upper management. And, you're right, Joe. I think you're right. I think they've gotten to a point where it's they're really looking for anybody. And I don't know what the hiring criteria is, but they need a warm body to put on a PetSmart shirt and walk around and help. I don't think they're really spending a lot of time in educating, putting them through a big ramp up. Again, they don't have the budget for it. When you say a high turnaround rate, Jim's Fish, when you say a high turnaround, do you mean of the fish or of the personnel, or both? Well, price tag. It's probably the money. Those grooming stations are profit makers. They probably can't have any part of the store that isn't going to be generating profit. Chef Steve, my local pet shop here in Australia, has a $5,000 sump system. It would work properly if it had some decent biomedia in it other than useless plastic rings that they use. Wow. And I mean, do you bring it up with them? Do you tell them, look, I'm an experienced fish keeper. I would strongly encourage you to use something different. Um, I don't know. Well, that's good news, Val. Val says I don't defend any of the big box stores, but I have a Petco that rivals and even plain out beats any local fish stores or specialty stores anywhere in the state, and a PetSmart that's competing with them too. So again, they should take the managers of those stores and and put them in charge because obviously they're doing something right. And I hope that becomes the case down the road. It's just on you to check them out. Yeah, well, we've established that. And also to listen to your gut. I mean, if you know it's not right, do not proceed. MIDI Mac, I go into buying from a big box or internet, figuring I'm going to be treating something, and if I don't, it's a bonus. That's a good attitude. And this is where you get into do we medicate during quarantine? And I usually don't unless something shows up. But again, looking at the source wouldn't be a bad idea. MIDI Mac, I don't like the 5 to 7 day guarantee. Never happens that quick. That's true. You're right. Somebody just hit me with a super chat. The warmth of the season fills the air with joy. May everyone's holidays be filled with peace and wonder. I'm moving 30 tanks today. Oh my goodness. Wet sleeves. Thank you, my friend. Very appreciated. Michael Harris, yes, that is one of the definitions. I mean, one of the ones that are used comically. Doing things over and over again, expecting a different result. Any other questions? Go ahead and throw them at me now. Cat Sailor, it's okay, you're here. I'm glad you made it, my friend. So I want you folks to be on the lookout for a video, and it might end up being in several parts. It's going to be an in-depth, deep dive with Northfin and my friend Darius, and we're going to be talking about all the ins and outs. It's already been filmed. It was done as a Zoom call, so the video quality is not 4K, but it's okay. It's all right, and the message will come through. So watch for that. Watch for a video on Northfin. It's a lot of content, so I might break it up into 2 or 3 videos. Also, I'm going to be doing releasing a video on the Higher Circulation Wave Maker. This is already running in the tank behind me. You'll notice that the plants back, the other back here are leaning. Wait a minute, I'm backwards and upside down. These plants here are leaning a little bit, and it's because the wave maker is on the same timer as the lights, so it doesn't run all day long, and it's built like a gyre. You know, it's built like one of those wide. You know, it's got a wide profile and then a slit, just a very tight little opening, right? That so the water comes out as a real strong stream. So it's helping to suspend detritus, because as you know, I don't vacuum these tanks. It's going to suspend the detritus so it gets taken up by the filters. And I've got another. My friends at Higer just sending me Christmas presents. This is a 500 watt Higer wire drawing. I don't know why it's called wire drawing. Aquarium heater. Automatic protection system, fully submerged in the water, rapid thermal accumulation, digital LED, precise temperature control. Anyway, they sent me one of these, and I'll go ahead and probably put that into, I might put it in one of my sumps. So watch for some product reviews. And this afternoon, I'm going to be around 2 o'clock Central, I think. I have a video coming out where I give you an honest take on Aquarium Co-op jumping into the water conditioner game. Some of you know that Aquarium Co-op is now offering water conditioner, and I got a hold of some of it. Let me see if I can find the I've got a picture of it here. I can show it to you. But the video gets into the here, hold on here. Hopefully we don't experience any technical difficulties here while I try and do this. Overload my my system. Trying to find the thumbnail to show you. So this is a product that Aquarium Co-op is now offering, and it's basically your basic water conditioner, right? Ammonia, chlorine, chloramide remover. And so my question in the video is, do we need another water conditioner? And I explore that topic in the video. So watch for that. That'll be out this afternoon, and I'll give you an honest take on that. Yes, Kendall G. A lot of them, and be sure to check on it, check on each one by going into the details of the description, because very often they don't put it on the outside of the box, but it will in some cases have an alarm. In some cases, it'll have it'll flash the little controller unit that goes outside the aquarium that you would probably hang on the frame. It'll flash and tell you that your water level is too low or something is wrong. So it'll alert you. It'll alert you that there's your temp is too high or too low, there's a malfunction with the heater, or that the or that you've dropped you've actually your water level's gotten too low, and in some cases they have auto shut off, which is the best when they have auto shut off built into it. Some pumps have that now, right? Your pumps that you put in sumps, if the water level goes low, instead of burning itself out because it uses the water to cool, right, it actually would just shut off, and that's a very good thing to have in there. What does that say? Colossal sword, proper form and technique. Colossal sword, proper form and technique. You should reach out. Did you reach out to Corey or to Zenzo about that? Because they've been pretty responsive on products when they have some type of a problem, and they have released products with problems. I mean, they do all the front end testing they can, but you really don't get the real true test until it goes out into the broad market. So if you, I suggest Colossal Sword, proper form and technique. Are you into like saber, rapier? But that's a very cool, very different name. I would suggest that you reach out to them, explain what you're running into, and they'll get back to you. First of all, they'll probably refund your money for what you bought, and it makes them aware of the problem. And just to add to that, I'm going to be writing to PetSmart and attaching a link to the video and offering to make some suggestions on protocols. Let's see if they respond. It's the least I can do, right? Chef Steve, I do use a pump for water changes on the aquarium behind me. And it is an external pump. It's a big pump. It's moving a few hundred gallons an hour. And I take this tank down about a third, which is 100 gallons. I don't go more than 50%. I don't do that much. I haven't found it to make that much of a difference, but at least a third gets reduced. And so, yeah, I do use a pump. Otherwise, I'm using just a standard hose to the sink through a Python system. Michael Harris, I thought it started at 10. Are you talking about the live stream? It starts at 11 Central, which is 9 Pacific, noon Eastern. I think I used to do 10. Wasn't I doing 10 in California? I think I might have been doing 10 in California. Garage Gills, hello to you. Another great name, Garage Gills. Scott Tucker. Hi, Ben. I have had good luck buying albino corridors from a local pet. There you go. And there isn't anything you can say, really, that isn't going to have exceptions, right? You can put anything out there, and you're going to have exceptions. That's always going to be the case. I've gotten some good fish from my big box stores. I've gotten them too. So I just would like to remove some of the roll of the dice. I would like to remove some of that. to help the new fish keeper to have a better chance at getting that first aquarium to make it so that they become advanced fish keepers down the road. Brandon wants to know. That's a good question, Brandon. Do we need anything beside Prime? I was using Prime forever, and then I was working with James Largo, and he was sending me some Fritz Complete, and basically the same product, same ingredients, same. The only one that's different perhaps is Seachem Safe, where you use like a quarter teaspoon for 300 gallons, and it lasts like 1,000 years. So I use Seachem Safe powder on the 210 and the 300, but I'm currently using Fritz Complete on the other tanks, including the 90 gallon. But I might try Aquarium Co-op once I run out of that Fritz Complete on the smaller tanks. Yeah, that's what I figured, Cat Sailor. I mean, you can sit there and just rant, which you see a lot of. You see a lot of folks that use the internet as a platform to rant, but they don't really do anything, and maybe they feel they've accomplished or done something with the rant. But take it a step further and actually getting involved and contacting and getting into communication with people. It's different than being behind a keyboard. CC Custom Leatherworks, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Colossal, that may be the route to turning this thing around, is actually engaging them and letting them know. And whether it's a customer or a platform on YouTube that has a broad audience, it's gonna again it's gonna be their viewpoint from what I'm picking up. If they feel it's gonna hurt their pocketbook, the dividends to their stockholders, they'll take action. So maybe that's where we need to go. Now, there's different kinds of wave makers. Proverbs 21:19. So if it's and it really depends on what's your purpose. I have a whole video series on wave makers. If your purpose is to help create surface tension breakup to add more oxygen to the aquarium, certainly putting it at least 2/3 of the way up from the bottom and pointed slightly up is going to make a big difference. If your purpose is to sweep the substrate, maybe not too close to the bottom, maybe around midway with a slight downward, because if it's too close to the bottom, close to the wave maker, you're going to get a pit. So a little bit higher so that the gravel just below it isn't getting pummeled, but it's doing enough to. The one behind me is about 2/3 up. About 2/3 up. I don't need surface tension breakup in the aquarium behind me because I've got the outputs from the two Seashave 5.0 pumps that are half in the water and half out. So they're giving me a lot of oxygen. Also, they're set up that way so that in the event of a power failure, they immediately start sucking air. So they break the siphon and don't back siphon and overflow my sump. So it really depends what your purpose is. 2/3 of the way up and pointed directly into the aquarium is going to give you a nice distribution of temperature, a nice distribution of oxygen. It's going to create a little bit of a challenging flow for some of your fish, which some of them might like. Some fish like to swim in the flow. So again, it kind of depends on what your purpose is on having it, and that would determine where you're going to put it. And again, I have if you do a YouTube search, Ben Ochart wave makers, Ben Ochart power heads, you'll get about a dozen videos, and I talk about all the different nuances, all the different things and angles and suggestions. But thanks for that comment. Garage Gills, I talked to an employee at the local pet, let me see here, Petco, who had enthusiasm for fish. I gave her info on the local aquarium club. She was thrilled. There you go. I mean, if corporate won't educate them, maybe we can. Hey, Northfin. Glad to see you here. Was talking about you. Not sure if you heard any of it. It was all good. Colossal Sword. Can someone help Colossal Sword with this question? I'm not really sure what you're referring to. If you're talking about bulkheads, from my experience, you got to make sure you have that little rubber gasket properly in place. You have to tighten the bulkheads down. I even use a little bit of aquarium sealant on the bulkheads just to be extra sure I don't get leaks. You know, right? Aquarium safe sealant, silicone sealant. But can someone help Colossal with this question? Just bought a 110-gallon Tough Stuff stock tank. Do I need to tighten the whole socket to prevent leaking? And do I need plumber's tape? So if you folks are familiar with what that means, jump in. I'm still cruising the chat. You're welcome, Proverbs. Angelo Mili, my pleco, was chewed up by my wave maker. Yeah, you've got to make sure the case around the wave maker doesn't have openings that are large enough for any of your fish to get in, because they will get in there and rest. It's a great hiding spot. So if you have like young plecos or anything that likes to get into tight spots, small clown loaches, anything that likes to get into a tight spot, yeah, you'll have fish smoothie. So don't do that. And there are, like with some of these, this is the Hydor Generation 3 that I pulled out of the tank behind me. And it has different kinds of cages. You can see that? First of all, the outside slits are pretty small. A baby pleco could get in there, but anything more than a couple weeks old might have a problem. The front, they have about 3 or 4 grills you can swap out. So you can put a tighter grill than that on it. These are great. These Hydor, they run forever. you have to put your ear next to the tank because they're totally silent, unless you've got something that shows you that it's running. The sound won't tell you it's running. Not like Sun power heads. They can hum and be noisy. And then on the inside of the aquarium, there's a big suction cup on the inside of that you put on the inside of the aquarium. And then on the outside, it's magnetized. So you have this large magnet, see it? So it hangs inside your aquarium, and then this is kind of a brilliant design. The high door just falls into that with a magnet, and then you simply rotate it the way you want it in that little round pocket. You just simply move it around. It's a brilliant design from High Door. 3rd generation. This thing's been running forever. I think I had it back in California. And if I set up that 60-gallon, I'll probably use it in there. That 60-gallon acrylic. Unless I put discus in there, which I still have on my radar. But you really can't use a strong power head with discus. They just get blown around. And by the way, here's a pro tip for you. You absolutely have to pull out at least a couple times a year. Pull out your power heads, pull out your wave makers, and really give them a good cleaning, because there's a sharp drop off in their gallons per hour. Just look at the pumps in your sump, the motor, the pump in your canister filter. They build up gunk, and they have a sharp drop off in GPH. So every now and then you got to just disassemble them. Even as daunting as the task might seem, even your FX6s, pull that housing off, disassemble it, and just pay real close attention to what you're doing so you can backward engineer it back together. If you end up with an extra screw, something's really wrong. But you've got to pull those magnets out. You've got to get those you've got to really get those impellers out and clean them up. All right. If I missed your question, it doesn't mean I don't like you. It just means that I didn't see it. And let's see what else is going on. Des in the house. Hey, Des Turner. Ronald joined us, and there you go. All right, so some of you are helping out Proverbs on that question. So, that being said, I want to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. I think my next live stream will be will it be the first Saturday? Maybe the Saturday before New Year's. We'll see. But I'll let you know. First Saturday in the new year will probably be for sure. But between now and then, I'm not sure. But at any rate, thank you so much for tuning in, my friends. You are the best. And thank you to all of you for your support throughout 2024. It was a great year in a lot of ways. A couple of hiccups here and there, but that happens. And I think I'll release a video on what my 2025 goals are. Certainly a discus tank. Man, oh man, I really wanted one in 2024, but other projects kept running into each other. But a discus tank for sure. And just keep on learning, redecorate this a little bit, create some outward space by moving some of these storage containers. So expanding the room out a bit so I can perhaps at some point add another rack. And I gave up on one of those 55-gallon. I couldn't take the top rim off of it, but I'm going to try the other 55-gallon. I'm going to see if I can remove the top frame and brace off of that one and replace it. So that's a video that I still plan on doing. We'll see what happens with that. And I'm thinking 2025 goals. If you think there's something you'd like to see in this fish room in 2025, let me know, either in the chat right now or in the comments if you're watching the replay. But thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you at the next live stream. Watch for the upcoming videos, starting this afternoon with the Aquarium Co-op honest review of their water conditioner. All right? Thank you, my friends, and I will see you at the next one. Bye-bye for now.